Hi, I'm Kaz, one of the teachers here at Leiths Education, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make brown sugar pavlovas with whiskey-poached pears. The basic ratio you need to know for a meringue is 1 part egg white to 2 parts sugar. Now you'll notice in this recipe our 2 parts sugar is split between caster sugar and dark brown soft sugar. That dark brown soft sugar is going to give us a beautiful molasses flavour, lovely for an autumnal or winter version of a pavlova, but it's also got a really high moisture content, which means it's going to dissolve much easier into those egg whites. So think of this almost as your starter pavlova. A few pieces of mise en place points to get yourself set up for success here. The first thing is everything needs to be weighed really accurately. The second thing is our egg whites need to be completely fat-free. Any yolk or any residual fat from your bowls are going to stop your egg whites from foaming. We're going to mix our sugars together to a nice consistent colour, and I've also preheated my oven to 120 degrees. Our 2 sugars here, and I'm just going to mix them together to create a nice uniform colour, creating that 2 parts sugar to 1 part egg white. Absolutely crucial ratio to remember. I have cleaned my bowl and my whisk, but just to be sure, I'm going to spray a little bit of vinegar in the bowl, and that will help to lift up any residual fat that's left over. Into my spotlessly clean bowl, I'm going to pop my 90 grams of egg whites, and I'm also going to go in with my cream of tartar. Cream of tartar is an acid, and egg whites foam better in slightly acidic environments, so we're setting ourselves up for a more stable meringue. To start with, I'm going to set my beaters to a really low speed. What that means is I'm going to end up with a strong, stable network of small bubbles before I turn the whisk up to create my stiff peaks. That's been about 1 minute on a slow speed, and you can see I've created this foam with lots and lots of small bubbles. That tells me that this stable network is starting to be created, and I can now turn up my beaters and go for that stiff peak. Now you could be forgiven for thinking that we're almost there, but there's one reason that we're not, and that is because I can still see individual bubbles here. There is still a foam network. Before we start identifying peaks, it needs to be white and it needs to look opaque. You can still see a couple of individual bubbles here, but we're starting to get to where we need to be, and we're just starting to see this lovely softness to the peak on the beaters, which tells me we're at a medium peak. And there we have it, we are at our stiff peak. So what am I looking for here? In the bowl, it's white, it looks thick, it looks opaque. It almost has a sort of pearlized shine to it. And as I lift my beaters up out of the bowl, they're nice and stiff on the beaters. So now it's time to add that sugar. So let me give you an overview of what's going to happen here. I'm going to add the sugar tablespoon by tablespoon. And because we're adding something heavy into something light, the initial reaction is that the egg whites are going to deflate. As they deflate, I'm then going to whisk them back up to this stiff peak before I add the next tablespoon of sugar. So let's see that in action. First tablespoon of sugar in. It will immediately deflate. That's deflated, and now I'm going to whisk back up to stiff peaks. And then I've whisked them back to stiff peaks. I'm going to continue on this track until all my sugar is in. Now that all of my sugar is in, we need to turn this meringue into a pavlova. And the way that we're going to do that is with the addition of corn flour and white wine vinegar. The corn flour is going to give it a lovely mallowy middle, and the white wine vinegar is going to give us that crisp outer shell. You can see here we have a lovely stiff meringue. Absolutely nothing is deflating that. So now it's time to get this onto a tray and into the oven to bake. The first thing I'm going to do is just stick the parchment to the tray with a little bit of that pavlova mixture. And then I'm looking for 8 equal portions. Now it's time just to look over these 8 piles of pavlova, see if there are any that look a little light, making sure that they all have an equal amount in them. Now, a pavlova in its nature has a nice rustic quality to it, so I don't want to mess around with these too much. But because I'm going to be serving it with cream and a poached pear, I do need a little ledge for that cream to sit on. So, just with the back of a cutlery spoon, I'm just going to gently push down and give myself that little divot or ledge for that cream to sit. Not messing around with them any more than that. I think this shape looks lovely as it is and is going to go really nicely with the natural shape of the poached pears. It's now time to put these in the oven. In a gas oven, we're looking at 120 degrees for an hour and 15, but in an electric, we can go slightly lower, something between 80 and 90 degrees, and then they will take around 1 hour and 45 minutes. Now that my pavlovas are in the oven, I can think about what I'm going to put on the top. And for this particular recipe, we are looking at some whiskey-poached pears. In my saucepan here, I have my poaching liquor, which consists of water, whiskey, some aromatics, and some light brown soft sugar. Whilst I'm prepping my pears, I have just put my poaching liquor on a lovely low heat to dissolve that sugar and make it a little bit warm before I pop my pears in. I've got 4 pears to prep, and the best way to do this is to just peel the bottom round in a circle and then follow the natural shape of the pear, long strokes. If we go in with lots of short, sharp strokes, we're going to end up with something that doesn't look very natural anymore. So we're trying to maintain that beautiful curve. My pears are peeled, it's now time to cut them into quarters. So with my bridge hold, straight down the middle of the pear, be careful, they're usually quite slippery. And then I'm going to do this flat side down, straight down the middle. And then I can bring my knife in at an angle just to take out that core. So then we have something that's got this lovely natural shape to it, no core. My pears are now all prepped and my poaching liquor is nice and warm, so it's time to pop them in. I'm going to cover this with a cartouche just to make sure that the pears cook nice and evenly and stay submerged in that liquid. And then we're looking for this poaching liquor to be at a really gentle simmer. If we allow it to boil, that outside of the fruit is going to become a little pappy, a little overcooked. So a nice gentle heat, and we'll keep checking every so often. My pears have been poaching now for 5 minutes, so I'm going to lift up that cartouche and have a little check. Pulling one of the pears out, and just with the tip of a sharp knife, it should go through with very little resistance, which that one did. Now that my pears are poached, I'm going to turn off the heat and allow them to cool in this poaching liquor. That will finish off any residual bits that need to be cooked a little further, but more importantly, it gives the pears an opportunity to suck up all of that gorgeous flavour from the liquor as they cool. This poaching liquor has so much flavour to it, which means I don't want to leave it there. I don't want to leave it in the pan. I'm going to take out a couple of spoonfuls. I'm going to reduce that down to almost a honey consistency to give me a glaze to finish the pavlovas with. So this poaching liquor has been reducing for about 3 to 4 minutes on a nice simmer. And it's starting to get to that sort of runny honey stage where when I draw my spatula through the saucepan, we have a parting of the waves. This glaze is going to be used for 2 things. When I drain my pears, I'm going to use it to brush over the top of them to give them a lovely glossy finish, and then I'll drizzle a little bit over the top as well for presentation. So what are we looking for? Well, that pavlova is going to have that distinctive mallowy middle, so we don't want to touch too hard, but we should feel a little crispness to the outside. I'm going to allow them to cool on the baking sheet just to lift any residual stickiness on the bottom, and then we'll cut into one and have a look. My pavlovas have been cooling, so now it's time to peel off the parchment. Very gently, I'm going to lift up and ease that parchment away from the bottom. There will be a little bit of tackiness left on the parchment. That's to be expected because these are lovely and mallowy in the middle. And now let's have a look inside and see what we're dealing with. So we've got that lovely crisp exterior and then that cornflour addition making the inside lovely and soft and mallowy. So let's just recap where we've got to. My pavlovas are out of the oven. My pears have been poached and been allowed to cool in that poaching liquor. And I've also taken a couple of ladles out and reduced that to that lovely runny honey consistency. So now it's time to think about bringing all of that together. I'm going to take 2 halves of pear out of the poaching liquor and drain them on a J-cloth and then dab them with that sticky glaze for a finish. Just dabbing any excess moisture just to allow that glaze to stick. So with a pastry brush, just giving it that lovely, decadent, sticky finish. And then those are my pears ready for service. It's now time to think about softly whipping some cream. So in the bowl here, I've got some double cream. No sugars needed for this one. Everything else is so sweet. We don't need to sweeten it any further. I'm going to whisk with a balloon whisk until it just starts to hold its shape. If you want to hold cream for service, you need to severely under whip it and then whip it just at the last minute to that perfect consistency. The cream is just holding its shape. It's just leaving a ribbon on the surface. So I'm going to leave that there, set it to one side, whilst I start to think about plating the rest, and then I can do the last final turns for service. A nice spoonful of cream on top of that pavlova before I finish with 2/4 of pear. Just a little bit of that lovely sticky glaze. Here's what to look for in that finished pavlova. Nicely poached pears, not too soft, but still retaining a little bit of texture to them. That cream is nicely softly whipped, just holding its shape, but no texture. And then our brown sugar pavlova should be nice and mallowy in the middle with a crisp exterior. In the cut through with my knife, I can tell that the pears are really softly poached, no resistance going through, and then just getting that crisp outer shell of the pavlova before it gives way into the mallowy middle. And there we have it. Your brown sugar pavlovas with whiskey poached pears.